When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Kroger worth it every time. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold! Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See detail.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Big Ten Football Talk Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Guggenheim, and we are here to recap week one of the college football season. Make sure to like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, YouTube. Hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, share with your friends, follow us on X, email me at big10footballtalk@gmail.com. Lot of football action to discuss, and as tradition in this show, the way I'm going to recap things from a Big Ten perspective and then from a national perspective is I'm just going to do power rankings, and then I'll do my national top 12, but I'm not going to do a traditional top 12 in the national sense, but rather I'm going to do a updated playoff bracket based on week one. As you can imagine, both my power rankings and my top 12 are going to be very fluid, which means things might not make sense. I'm just telling you, my top 12, you're going to be like, well, but this team blew out this team and this team did this, and it's only been 1 week. And I'm like, I get it. Things are kind of crazy. I'm going off of what I saw on the field. I'm trying to be super fluid. Okay. I'm just telling you right now. And so if you're like, this team shouldn't be here, this team should be here, yada, yada. I get that. I have reasoning. Things are fluid. Teams change. Okay. So that's my caveat to tell you that if you tell me I'm wrong, you might be right. Also, you might be wrong. It's week one. Let overreaction season commence, right? But let's get right into it. Let's go to the power rankings. I'm going to go from bottom to top because I like saving the best for last. The last team in my power rankings, I think, is fairly obvious, I think the last two teams are fairly obvious. Number 18 is UCLA. They were in a dogfight with Hawaii. Now, granted, it was in Hawaii, which I said could be a little tricky. You know, it's a time zone issue. You're going, 3 hours west. But they were in serious danger of losing that game. Ethan Garbers did not play all that well. So, quarterback issues and whatnot. And they need to regroup. They have a bye week this week. They get Indiana at home. But if they want to avoid a winless season in the Big Ten, that's a game that they have to have. And they cannot play the way they did against Hawaii and expect to beat the Fighting Curt Cignettis. So I've got UCLA at 18, right by them. And again, they played very poorly, and I have a lot of concerns, is the Michigan State Spartans. Number 17 on my list. Granted, they had a bigger, they had a 2-score lead until Aiden Childs threw a pick six to go the other way. So that made that score even closer than it probably should have been. If they score a touchdown there, it's 23 to, I think, 6 at that point. I forget, not 23. Yeah, it'd be 23 to a single digit number. So it would have looked a lot better. The reality is Michigan State just did not play well. And all the transfers, all those transfers that came in, you're thinking, oh, they're going to be better, Jonathan Smith. And I think Jonathan Smith is going to get those boys in a better spot to play. But it did not look good. Lynch Adams was obviously a bright spot for them, 101 yards on 9 carries. But Aiden Childs, 114 yards, 10 of 24 passing, 2 picks. And then in the run game, like, he added a touchdown, but 4.7 yards per carry. Like, this was not a good performance. And their run average was really bolstered by a big run by K'Ron Lynch Adams. Excuse me. So like this was a subpar performance against, quite honestly, a not very good Florida Atlantic team that doesn't have a good offense. So like even the good defensive performance for Florida Atlantic or against Florida Atlantic, you can kind of throw out because Florida Atlantic has not been good offensively. So I just think it wasn't a pick six, by the way. It was an interception the other way. That's my bad. Anyway, Michigan State did not look good, and I have a lot of concern as they go into their matchup with Maryland, who we'll talk about later in the show. Number 16, I had a tough time putting these guys here, but just in context, I was like, I was glad that they won. I was glad that they won by multiple scores. I expected more, and that's the Indiana Hoosiers. Now, I know some Hoosier fans might be upset, be like, we beat Florida International by 24 points. You know, I understand that. I get that. You know, Florida International is not great, and I would have liked to see them dominate them more with all the hype. Now, I do think Indiana is probably still trying to gel with Curtis Rourke, trying to, get things gelling. So I don't think they'll stay at 16, but I did not like how they looked. I thought they struggled. And I just know that their talent it's not as high of a ceiling as some of the other teams, even if other teams struggled this week more than they did. So I've got Indiana at 16. At 15, I have a team that did struggle mightily in a way that I did not expect, and that is the Wisconsin Badgers. Listen, they were down in the fourth quarter to Western Michigan. And so Badger fans, if you're sitting here and you're like, there's no way we're worse than Indiana, I would say, I think you might be right, but also you almost got beat by Western Michigan. You didn't look good. And again, you guys, I think, had similar struggles to Indiana in adjusting to a transfer quarterback, which I think, if I'm honest, I think that was a trend, I think, throughout the week, is that transfer quarterbacks, with the exception of a couple, I think really struggled, or their team struggled in adjusting to a new quarterback who is adjusting to a new system. So even if the stat lines were good, there were maybe issues with timing or issues with, communication with receivers. There are other teams on this list. I'll talk about that in a minute. That being said, Wisconsin, my expectation is they should have dominated more. And if they struggle like that throughout the rest of their schedule, we're talking about a team that will not go bowling if they don't get issues fixed. So I've got Wisconsin at 15. I have Minnesota at 14. Okay. This is where I'm going to get a bit more in depth here. Minnesota's roster was better than UNC's roster. And I said that last week. And before UNC fans got mad at me on the Big Ten huddle because I said that I thought Minnesota was a better team and maybe had more athleticism. That athleticism probably is not the right word, but I thought they had more skill. And I think while the running back for UNC was, I think, the best running back on the field because Darius Taylor wasn't playing, Daniel Jackson was definitely the best receiver on the field. Definitely the best receiver. Max Brosmer, though he struggled a bit, was the better quarterback on the field. And no offense to Max Johnson. I hope he gets better. Broke his leg. Really sad that's how his season started and ended, was with that broken leg. But he was not very good for UNC. The offensive line for UNC was not very good. I said that. Said that was going to happen. Minnesota's better than lines. PJ Fleck needs to remember why he recruited Max Brosmer. He recruited Max Brosmer to air it out and have a more explosive offense. To run the ball on 3rd and goal from the 9-yard line to get a critical score early in that game, just to kick a field goal that you miss, is not trying to air it out. Playing for a field goal at the end of the game because, that will win you the game. Sure. Do you remember that your kicker missed a field goal earlier in the game? And by the way, your players are undisciplined and you don't coach them up to know, okay, whatever you do not hold on the last couple plays of the game. Whatever you do, like we're in field goal range, don't hold because that'll put us back. And your lineman holds. Now, that's on the player. Yes. It's also on the coaches for not coaching them up in that moment. Like that play pushed him a bit out of field goal range. Not getting the ball in the right spot for your kicker to feel more comfortable. That was a problem. These are coaching errors. And regardless of, of any other things that went well, and I thought a lot went well. I thought the fight of the Minnesota Golden Gophers was there. I thought it was clear that they were the better roster. Like they should have won this game by 2 scores. But Max Brosmer has an unfortunate fumble. It was a great play, but it was 16 points. I was right on there. And then for them to botch the field goals, to botch play calling, to play conservatively, instead of winning by multiple scores, they lose by 2 points. And that's squarely on PJ Fleck. And then he has the audacity to say, well, it was the team that was going to win by 20 was going to win that game. You brought in Max Brosmer to stop winning games like you're Iowa. You're not Iowa. And by the way, Iowa scored 40. I don't care if it was Eastern Illinois or whoever they were playing. You brought in Brosmer to score more points. So do that. He has no one to blame but himself. And it is the concern that I've had with Minnesota for a while is PJ Fleck cannot get out of his own way. And he cannot coach. Like, I think he's had great moments, but he thinks he's Kirk Ferentz, and he's not. Right? Ferentz has done a great job now, and we tarred and feathered Kirk Ferentz for keeping his son as offensive coordinator, by the way, and he's had way more success than PJ Fleck ever has. That loss is squarely on Minnesota, on the coaching staff, and particularly PJ Fleck, for going that conservative and not coaching up his guys. And it's absurd. And what's more absurd is he doesn't hold himself accountable. Like, say what you want about Brian Kelly. Like, I do not like Brian Kelly, but at least he pointed the finger at himself after the USC to LSU game. I didn't hear any of that from PJ. And so this Minnesota team could be a top half Big Ten team the way that they're constructed this year. But he blew a game that they needed with the schedule that they had. So they're 14. I'll go from a coach who underachieves to a coach who is overachieving, and that's Northwestern. They're at number 13. Say what you want. It was a 1-score game against Miami of Ohio. Miami of Ohio is the MAC favorite. Miami of Ohio had quite a bit of juice going into this game. And Northwestern has not had a lot of juice. I think a lot of people think Northwestern is going to finish dead last in the Big Ten or bottom 2 or 3. This is a game that Northwestern needed if they want to get to a bowl game, and they did it. They won. They controlled the game. They were ahead for most of it. I know it was low scoring. I thought Mike Wright did some nice things. I thought that the defense played really, really well. I really like them against Duke next week. Like, hats off to David Braun and that coaching staff. Again, I know it doesn't look sexy, but Northwestern, I thought, won honestly a big game for them, and their defense looked really good. And you think about their schedule, there are some teams on their schedule that if they like, the offense could really be junked up by their defense, and that gives them pathways to win. So good for the Wildcats. Number 12, Illinois. Number 12, I have Illinois. I think they have a decent shot to knock off Kansas next week. Now, Kansas is really good. I think Kansas has an outside shot to win the Big 12. So I think they are deservedly the favorites. Altmaier looked really good. The defense played well. Caden Fagan played well. All the things that you want to see out of Illinois. And I thought they played well enough to make me think, I don't think the game in Champaign next week with Kansas is going to be quite as lopsided as a year ago. I think Luke Altmaier is underrated. I think, he played really well. 4 touchdowns, 213 yards. Fagan had 108 yards. Pat Bryant was active. And they controlled that game. It was 31-0 at half. And so, granted, again, it's Eastern Illinois. Not a great team. But they did what they're supposed to do, which is it's why I have them 12 and why I have Purdue at 11. Because same thing. They did what they had to do. Hudson Card broke a completion percentage record, which I've been saying it. Hudson Card is a good quarterback. You've got a good quarterback. The defense played well. And I think Purdue, again, Indiana State's not good, but they did what they're supposed to. They beat them 49-0. Maccabee averaged 8 yards a carry. The tight end, Claire, got involved, 71 yards, a touchdown. Even if Purdue ends with a losing record, they are better than you think. They're better than you think. They have a nasty schedule, but I thought Purdue really acquitted themselves quite nicely. Granted, it was only 21-0 at half. It took some time for them to get rolling, but kudos to the Boilermakers. They played well. They played well against overmatched competition, and that's what you need to do in week 1. Number 10, I've got Washington, who was a little slow start against Weber State. I still think roster-wise, they're pretty good. Jonah Coleman had a day, 3 touchdowns on 16 carries, 127 yards. Maybe the least talked about running back in the Big Ten, who might be a top 5 talent in this running back, in the running back pecking order. Like, he's very good. Will Rogers had a good day. I would have liked to see Washington start quicker, but with all that turnover, completely new offense, no returning starters. They did a good job of just solidifying. And I think that talent will really help them as things go on. So that's the bottom half. We're going to go to number 9. I've got the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. I got myself in a little hot water with Rutgers fans. They were a little upset with me because I said that every transfer quarterback on Thursday and Friday struggled, except for every transfer quarterback struggled, whereas Luke Altmaier, who was not a transfer this year, did not struggle. Even Kaliakmanis didn't struggle per se. I will say, I don't think he was super impressive, is maybe a better way I'd put it. His completion percentage was fine. He threw for 3 touchdowns. I would have liked to see more throws downfield, right? There were some drops. That's not on him. I think that's him getting into the rhythm of things. Kaliakmanis was fine. Like, he was okay. They were slow starting. Monangai had a big day, 165 yards. I believe that is a personal best for him. I would expect this, though, of Rutgers over Howard. Like, Howard they're okay. They're a decent FCS team. They're not great. But that being said, like, it was a solid debut for Kaliak Manis. I would like to see more out of him. But good start. Number 8, I'm going to get blasted by Terps fans here. I've got Maryland. Maryland, please don't make this a one-hit wonder. Because I'm a little terrified. And granted, it's UConn. It's UConn. They beat them 50-7. UConn's not great. But Billy Edwards looked really good. Ty Felton, 7 catches, 178 yards. I still like Ryan Hemby. I think he's an underrated back for them. If this offense can be like decent to good, they will make a bowl game. I think when I was evaluating him preseason, I was like, I don't feel good about the offensive line, and I don't feel good about the quarterback. Billy Edwards played really well. Now, again, it's UConn, but again, they took care of business. Good for them. And I gotta recognize that. They beat an FBS team 50-7. I gotta give them credit. So right now they're 8. That is where I have them. Number 7, I have Nebraska. Really good debut for Dylan Raiola, the now reigning freshman of the week. Beat out Jeremiah Smith, who we will talk about. But Dylan Raiola had a really good debut. Nebraska's defense played really well. Again, 40-7 on UTEP. UTEP, again, not great, but they did what they're supposed to do as they gear up for a big matchup against Colorado, which I think will be a fun matchup. So you'll hear me and what the Common Fan podcast, which is a group of Nebraska guys, what they think about that game on Thursday. But yeah, Nebraska did what they were supposed to do. Defense was good. Dylan Raiola, I thought, had a really good start to his freshman campaign. This is where things get tricky because I don't necessarily believe that these, like, the order of the top 6 is where these teams are, where they're going to end up. But I've got to respect what they've done or criticize what they haven't done. So number 6 is Oregon. A 10-point win against Idaho. I watched a little bit of this. I'll be honest, I didn't get a chance to watch all of it. It's a mind-boggling box score. And I think part of it, like, Dylan Gabriel was sacked 3 times. Noah Whittington had 14 carries, only 2.4 yards per carry. They only had a long run of 16 yards. They honestly, the thing that really concerns me about Oregon is they just didn't have a lot of explosive plays. Like, their longest reception was 24 yards. And while I think their defense played well, like, Idaho only scored really on a couple of trick plays. But the offense, like, I just expected more from Oregon. And, Dylan Gabriel had a fumble. So, like, again, a lot of good things happened. Like, Dylan Gabriel was 41 of 49 for 380 yards, only averaged 7.8 yards per attempt, combined with averaging 2.9 yards per carry. That's a little bit of a red flag. And to do it against, honestly, an FCS team, that's concerning to me. And for a team, and I think this is part of it too, for a team that I expected to have an explosive offense, they were not explosive against a team that I expected them to beat. I expected them to win by 40 or 50. And it'd be different if they, if they kind of pulled it together and it was like 38 to 14, or even 35 to 14, or 31 to 14. but it's like they really struggled to get stuff going even at the end of the game. So again, they had a lot of yards, not explosive. And I think that's a concern for me. Number 5, I have Michigan. Michigan, I'll say this. The quarterback issues are a problem. I think it is concerning that Davis Warren is the starter and not Alex Orji. I think Alex Orji, from a potential standpoint, is the better guy, but I think they have Davis Warren in there because they can't trust him. And I think you could tell because Davis Warren was kind of meh, right? Like he was okay. He threw a pick, and I'm looking at the stats here. He only threw for 118 yards, 15 of 25. Just not very good. Running the ball, I'm also a little concerned. Khalil Mullings was great. He is that thumper that, the guys on Out of the Blue said he is going to be a pain. I can see that. He's a pain. Donovan Edwards has started like he played for most of last year. And I'm just not sure that he sees the field well. A lot of Michigan fans say we're completely underrating Donovan Edwards. I think he's a great receiver out of the backfield. I think when he hits a crease, he is one of the fastest backs in the country. I don't think he has great vision, and that hampers him. And I don't think he is the type of guy that you can feed 20 to 25 times a game, at least from the running back spot. Khalil Mullings, you can. I don't think Edwards is that guy. I think he's a little too slim. So I'm concerned about those things, especially with the offensive line lack of continuity. But that defense has not missed a step. I didn't think Will Johnson had a great game. He had the pick 6, which, sealed the game. This was a close game against a good group of 5 team, and you're breaking in a lot of new pieces. So do I think that Michigan struggled? Yes. I think I'd take Michigan's defense over Oregon right now and the way that they struggled, because I think Michigan, like Will Johnson did, can manufacture points. And I'm not sure, like if Oregon can't be explosive on the road against Michigan, I think that's like, I think Michigan could just run the ball 50 times and then the defense could make plays at this point. Because Oregon, that's how I got to Michigan over Oregon. I still think that Michigan-Texas game is going to be really good next week. I think people who are like, oh, Texas is going to smoke them. Listen, that defense is nasty. Fresno State's got a good quarterback. Like Mikey Keene is good. They've got good receivers. Jalen Moss, he played well against Michigan. And it kind of took everything for them to get 10 points. Texas will score more, I think, next week, but it's going to be a dogfight next week. Don't let their offensive output fool you, because I think Fresno State's decent. I think we knew Michigan was going to struggle a bit on offense. The defense is where this is at, and I think that's going to keep them in every game that they play this year. Number 4, I have Iowa. Cade McNamara, I know it was in the second half, but he played great. 251, 3 touchdowns. Caleb Johnson at running back had 119 yards. All 3 of Cade McNamara's touchdowns went to receivers. And remember, his best receiver, Caleb Brown, did not play. This was without Kirk Ferentz on the sidelines. And Illinois State is a ranked FCS team, which I know FCS, whatever. They're not a bad FCS team. And not only did they shut them out, but in the second half, they really turned things around and offensively. And I've been saying it, if Iowa has even a semi-competent offense, this is a dangerous team in the Big Ten. So I've got them at 4. At 3, I have Ohio State. And I'll explain that more based on the 2 teams ahead of them. I went to this game. I was there with my son. I thought Ohio State pulled it together, and I thought, the offensive line, I thought struggled quite a bit in the beginning of the game. I think the first quarter and a half, they were okay. They were inconsistent. I think some of the same concerns I've had about them. I still think Josh Fryer is not an elite level tackle, and I think that's going to bite him. That being said, the talent everywhere else is just oozing. And I mean, I did not think Ohio State played particularly well. And honestly, it should have been 59-6. Jeremiah Smith had a drop on a tunnel screen. It would have been a 70-yard touchdown. Alas, he dropped it, but they played poorly and they still won by 46. They almost covered. And part of that, the defense played I thought the defense actually did not play great, but they are so fast and they are so physical that it didn't matter. Joe Moorhead had a creative game plan, and it didn't matter. It was a rough outing for them. They knocked out the first quarterback because they were hitting so hard. That being said, I think Ohio State needs to clean a lot of things up. And they have a couple games, Western Michigan, who just challenged Wisconsin, and then Marshall, and then Michigan State before they get to Iowa and then at Oregon. So, I mean, they've got some time to kind of tinker. The one takeaway is I thought Will Howard looked better than I expected. Didn't really challenge over the middle, stayed kind of outside the hash marks, which I was surprised by. And I don't know if that was the defense dictating that or what, but I thought Ohio State needs to play better. But Will Howard looked better in this offense than Kyle McCord did a year ago. I think Jeremiah Smith he's real, man. And I know it's Akron, but listen, first drive, he looked like a freshman. Procedure penalty, false start, and then he looked like the best player on the field after that. And that's with Emeka Ibuka. That's with a lot of studs on defense. He was maybe the best player on the field on Saturday. So I really like him. But I've got Ohio State 3. Number 2, I have USC. Now, things will kind of shift a little bit in my playoff bracket here. But for now, I have USC in my power rankings at number 2. They had the best win out of every Big Ten team, which was 17-1. 17-1, which is great for the conference. PJ Fleck, do better. USC won. Big win for them. I think they got a little lucky. Now, before USC fans get mad at me and say that's a backhanded compliment. First of all, I think Brian Kelly choked this game away. And I think he admitted to that. And I think part of it's his coaching and just motivating his guys. But LSU has the better roster. They were controlling the lines of scrimmage. I think USC got away with some holds. And taking that into account, that's why they're not number 1 in my power rankings. I do think USC has a bona fide, legit QB in Miller Moss. Some of the throws he was making were just gorgeous. Is great decision-making. He was always in control. He was getting hit over and over and over again. He had to make quick decisions. And it seemed like almost every time, whereas Nussmeier had a lot of time to throw often, Miller Moss did not. And he made just some brilliant plays over and over again. I thought Lincoln Riley recaptured some of his mojo. And I think D'Anton Lynn, the way he coached his defense, you could tell that they were physical enough. I don't think they were as talented as LSU's offense because they were getting pushed around at times. But in the crunch moments, they did not wilt. And I think that's a huge testament to the coaching of not just Lincoln Riley, but Danton Lynn. And I mean, the way that they've upgraded their strength and conditioning over the year, they gained, the 1,400 pounds, whatnot. This is a USC team that is going to mess around a bit and be in, I think, Big Ten contention. Now, I still have concerns about their line play because, I think more competent coaches will exploit that better. And I think they don't play Ohio State now. They might get them in the Big Ten championship game, but they do play Michigan. They do play Oregon. They do play Penn State. And those teams, they do play Notre Dame. And those teams, I think, while maybe the offensive line isn't as good as LSU's offensive line is really good. Like they're going to have a lot of NFL draft picks come April.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Kroger worth it every time. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
But they're not well coached. And here's a stat for you. Brian Kelly, the past 3 years, has lost his non-conference season opener every year. USC I think they got lucky, but they're also much better. And I say that to put it in context. I don't think USC can be saying, oh, we're definitely going to be one of the top 2 teams in the Big Ten. I think you guys have some work to do still. But this is a really good start. And if you can keep going, I think if you can continue to build on those lines and really build continuity, this is a dangerous team, especially come playoff time. The receivers, the quarterback, the coaching, like that's what impressed me the most about this. The quarterback and the coaching. They were coached up and ready to go. And that's why they won this game. And listen, coaching matters. PJ Fleck, coaching matters. And USC proved that they have a really good coaching staff with this game. And I think Lincoln Riley, I've been down on him. This was an offensive, in a sense, masterclass, right? You don't have all the horses that you need. You still find a way to score points when you need to. Really well done. And that roster deserves a lot of credit too for playing up. I thought it was really, really well done. My number 1 team in the power rankings in the Big Ten, Penn State. Drew Aller showed passion. And for those who are like, why does that matter? Because last year he looked lifeless. And when you have a quarterback who is lifeless and is not leading, it is really hard to motivate your guys to play up. From the jump, he was in referees' faces. He was in his guys' faces. And not only that, but Andy Kotelnicki showed confidence by not sitting on the ball, but going after West Virginia's defense at the last 2 minutes of the first half. That told me everything I need to know about what this team is going to be this year. They're not going to coach scared. They're in a raucous environment with a team that was really thought they could beat Penn State and put themselves on the map with a dynamic quarterback with good running backs, and Penn State dominated them. They had leadership. They were much more physical on the lines. It was just, again, sloppy first quarter, but you get past that, and Penn State dominated this game. Now, I know there's a weather delay. I think West Virginia is, they're certainly not LSU, right? I'd pick LSU to beat West Virginia by a few scores. But I think it's game 1 on the road, weird things happen, and Penn State took control. That's what impressed me about this performance. And right now, that's why I have them at the number 1 spot. I think the other thing too, that I thought Nick Singleton, 13 carries, 114 yards and a touchdown. Harrison Wallace, 5 catches, 117 yards, 2 touchdowns. The defense was nasty, held West Virginia to 6 points when it mattered. I know they got 12, but again, they were dynamic. They just suffocated this team. And it was a team that had a lot of hype coming in. And so does that mean Penn State's going to be number 1 over the next several weeks? Maybe, maybe not. But at least for what I saw, I really like what they did. So those are my power rankings and the recap. Let me do my top 12. And by top 12, I mean my playoff bracket. So I'll do my first 4 out. My first 4 out: Oregon, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Michigan. Oregon and Michigan for the struggles that I saw. Ole Miss, I know people might say, well, Ole Miss dominated their team. Listen, I don't care about Furman. I don't. I think most teams in the Big Ten, I shouldn't say that. A lot of teams in the Big Ten could dominate Furman, and Ole Miss is the type of team that's going to put up a lot of points against a team that is overmatched. So I see that score. I don't really care. Tennessee, I thought, put up a really good performance against overmatched competition. Good for them. And then Michigan, I have them. And Tennessee, Ole Miss, they certainly can work themselves in. I just think I'm thinking about projections with this because I'm thinking about playoff brackets. So this is not necessarily a power ranking. This is okay, pathways. Where do I see pathways here with what I saw this past week? So I'll start with number 12, Boise State. I know they struggled against Georgia Southern. The running back was unconscious, 6 touchdowns, 260 yards, broke school records. That gives them a shot in every game. So I know that the defense struggled. I just couldn't think of a group of 5 team that was more impressive, quite honestly. So I'm going to stick with Boise State until I see otherwise. Number 11, I have Iowa, which is who I had before. Iowa is number 11. I think they're just, I just really like them if they have a good offense. And if they have a good offense, they can go 11-1. And I think they could give Ohio State struggles. Do I think they could go 12-0? I don't know. But I think they could go 11-1 and beat Ohio State if Ohio State has a rough offensive outing. Any given Saturday, it could happen. So I'm not predicting that, but I think Iowa has a real shot to go 11-1. Number 10, I have Missouri. Again, same thing as my previous prediction. I have Missouri 10. They dominated, kicked butt. They did really well. Here's where there is change. Number 9, I have USC. I have number 9 USC below Ohio State. And part of the reason why is I just think USC has more opportunities to stumble, and I'm assuming that they will. I think USC is, I think they're good. I think they'll get into the playoff if they're 10-2, which I think is very possible with what I saw. But I think that keeps them from climbing into getting a home playoff game at this point. Number 8, I have Notre Dame. Big win on the road against Texas A&M. I think Texas A&M is a bit overrated. I think their quarterback is not very good. Texas A&M's quarterback, Weigeman, not very good. But Notre Dame has, I think, a pretty good upgrade at quarterback in Riley Leonard. He can throw, he can run. He's a bit of a magician. Jeremiah Love played well in spurts against Texas A&M. And I think Marcus Freeman is kind of an upgrade at head coach over Brian Kelly. He's in year 3. He's starting to settle in. He has a good feel for this program. And it's a big deal that I know Texas A&M is overrated. For a program, it's a big deal for Notre Dame to go to SEC country and win that game. It really is. So I got Notre Dame at 8. I have Ohio State at 7. I'm not sure. Obviously, if they go 12-0, they're going to be a top 4 seed. I just don't know if they keep playing like this. I think they lose at least 1 and maybe 2 games. And even if they are just 11-1, I don't think they're going to get the benefit of the schedule like a couple of the SEC teams. And some of that might be bias, but some of it is just the SEC schedules are brutal this year. And I think they're going to get the benefit of the doubt, even though Ohio State does have a pretty difficult schedule. And from what I saw, I think Ohio State will struggle a bit. Number 6, I have Alabama. Number 5, I have Texas. Both teams took care of business. And then I've got my top 4 seeds, and 2 of them have changed. 2 of them have not. Number 4, I have Utah. Dominated. Cam Rising had a bajillion touchdowns before the end of the half. Second string went in. They did what they're supposed to do. Number 3, I'd like to take my Florida State pick back. That was great. Good job, Zach. Well done. Way to lose in Ireland, Florida State. Number 3, I have Miami. I hate saying that because I am not a Miami guy. And I don't think Florida is that good. But I don't trust anyone else in the ACC. And I think they're probably going to have less losses than Utah, because I think the Big 12 will beat each other up. By the way, speaking of Florida State, as I'm recording, they are losing to Boston College 14-0. So that pick was hot garbage, and I totally own that. Miami, I have number 3. Number 2, I have Penn State. In this projection, I have Penn State winning the Big Ten. I don't think that's going to be enough for them to get past Georgia, who I have winning the SEC. I do want to address something, though. I have Georgia there because they had a better win. If Texas wins next week, and depending on how it looks, I will flip Georgia and Texas, because I think Georgia ran away against, quite honestly, a not elite Clemson team. I think Michigan's defense is better than Clemson's defense. And Clemson just is not good offensively. I don't know what scheme they're running, but it's hot garbage. And Georgia struggled quite a bit. I mean, they wore down Clemson. It was not a dominant win. I know it looked like it, but they needed to figure stuff out. And so I think it was more a virtue of Clemson being bad than Georgia being good. But Texas hasn't played Michigan yet. And so if Michigan, and so I'm going to give Georgia the benefit that they are the best team in the SEC currently. But I want to see what happens on the field next week with Texas. So that will do it for my power rankings, my playoff bracket. Make sure again to like and subscribe. Tune in on Thursday when the boys from the Common Fan podcast will be on. I know that they are going to be completely impartial in picking Nebraska and Colorado. That's a joke. They are. I 100% believe that they will pick Nebraska by 100. But it's going to be a really fun show. We're going to pick all the games that the Big Ten's involved with, including Michigan, Texas, including every other game, Michigan State, Maryland. It'll be a fun show. Northwestern, Duke. It'll be really good. So make sure you tune in, like, subscribe, send me emails, big10footballtalk@gmail.com. Follow us on X, Instagram, leave reviews, share this with your friends. So grateful for you guys. I don't know if you know this, but as of recording, we are one person away from 500 followers on Spotify. So thank you guys for following there, but also make sure to go over and like and subscribe the YouTube page as well. So we can try to get to 300. We passed the deadline, but let's make the march to 300. So appreciate you guys. Take care. God bless.